At this time, please help me to welcome Joe.
Hi, my name's Joe. I'm a crystal meth addict. Hey, before we get started tonight, I just want to, some of you know, we've got a fraternal group called To Show Others in Edmonton, Canada, about 2006 or 2007. One of their members came through Phoenix, came to one of these meetings, took some recording of the group back, and since 2009 they've been listening to a recording of this group, and they have a group around it. I won't try and describe it to you. But anyway, two of their members are here tonight. Yeah, say hello to Reg and Leroy while they're here. Anyone in here for the first time tonight never been to position neutrality? Oh, good, a bunch of you. First of all, welcome. And second, let me warn you in advance, you're liable to perceive us just a little different than other meetings of other fellowships you may have attended. The reason that's liable to happen is that we intend for you to have a different experience here. What we do here, we've been doing for a lot of years now, we just take a look at the suggested instruction for a step or so a week, directly out of this book. And we use this book in Crystal Meth Anonymous. Why? Because it works. The process described by the authors of this book has been proven to work with addicts of the hopeless variety, addicts to alcohol and other substances. So although we call it a study, what it really is a sharing. I'm no guru on the book, but I'm a fair expert on my own experience, so I'll show you how I find that experience in these authors' telling. And I'll encourage you to have your experience with it. And if we both do our job, we'll share a spiritual experience in here tonight. Any of you been here before and can witness for the others that does happen?
Oh, yeah.
So when you see those hands go up, they're telling you that when we share a spiritual experience, we're sharing a sensory experience. You will feel it. And it'll be every bit as tangible as that sense of ease and comfort that came at once by taking a few drinks or a few hits. And if it isn't, and we don't discover that within ourselves, we don't stand a chance if we're indeed addicts of the hopeless variety. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is a process of revealing that power to us through us, this tangible power that we in recovery call God. And tonight we're going to take a look at 3 of the steps, 5, 6, and 7. 6 and 7, a lot of people don't have any understanding of. That's okay. You're not supposed to understand it anyway. The experience will bring understanding. But the instructions are, because they're in previous chapters and subsequent chapters, it's hard to figure it out where the instructions went all of a sudden. So we're going to try and bring that to light tonight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so if you will go to chapter 6, Into Action, on page 72 of your book. It says, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? How many of you found yourself in the position where you have done a personal inventory and didn't know what to do about it?
Nope.
Almost never happens anymore, does it?
Right.
Probably doesn't ever happen. The authors of this book thought they could write this book, send it out to the masses, people would read it and recover on their own. They were going to even have a guy tell a story of how that happened, because they finally found one guy who claimed that it happened, and they sent him money to come to New York and tell his story. Before he got there, he encountered another spirit. When he got to New York, he was too drunk to get off the bus. So that story's not in our book. So most of us have a little help in this, and someone shows us to show others precisely how we've recovered. Is the main purpose. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. So we've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. Is that what you've been trying to do, or did you understand that's what you've been trying to do? Get a new relationship with Creator. Yeah. And for those of you that are sitting here and you have a problem with, if you lean atheist or agnostic, that's okay. Half the original fellowship was atheist or agnostic. Right? So that we and all these we's, that was them. Half of them were atheist or agnostic. They either believed God did not exist or God could not be proven to exist. But they wanted a new relationship with Creator, because they had discovered by 2 that this experience we call God is tangible and relevant to your life. It expresses itself as power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction. That's their witness, not mine. I can witness myself that it's true. Some of you will tonight also. Okay? So why would I want a new relationship with Creator? Because the world reflects how I think and feel. It doesn't cause it. So it's really it's a no-brainer. If I'm having a tough time in creation, check in with Creator. Straighten out everything with Creator, creation straightens out.
Right.
That's half of them atheists or agnostics telling that story. It sounds like something we want to read a little more about at least. Okay, so we have admitted certain defects and we've ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. What is the trouble in a rough way?
Selfishness and self-centeredness.
Right? Depending on where you are in the journey, selfishness, self-centeredness, driven by 100 forms of fear. Right? Self-seeking, self-delusion, self-pity.
Right.
Okay. Okay, we've put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. So I've made the third step decision based on, yeah, that's probably true. By 4, I wrote it down, what I was like, what happened, what I hope to be like in the future, right? I got an inventory, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now I got a better idea that that's true. And I could see how fear drove it all, hopefully, yes? Any of you done an inventory?
Yep.
Any of you afraid to do an inventory? Yep. Everyone's afraid to do an inventory until you find out what the benefit is. Why do we search fearlessly? That's where we find God. And we're not talking about some concept. We're talking about this well of flow that we need. Okay? All right, so now these are about to be cast out. See, that's pretty good shit, ain't it? Cast out would be good. Okay, this requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we've admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult. How many of you found it difficult?
Very.
How many of you found the idea of it difficult and therefore did not start? So that's what we're to witness to. Everyone's afraid of it. It looks like it's going to be difficult. My job to you is, I once thought and felt as you did, but I doubt I'd have made much progress had I not taken action. This is the action I took.
Right.
Does that make sense? And then they can decide for themselves. See, they can't enter into a conscious relationship based on a lie. They either want it or they don't, every step of the way.
Right.
So I tell them why I did it and how I benefited as a result, and they can take it or leave it alone. Because it won't work unless they honestly want to and are willing to make the effort.
Yep.
So I cheat them if I drag them.
Right.
The power's the one that takes the step, not me. I didn't get me sober. Okay. All right, so we think we've done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. That's our problem, isn't it? Any of you ever screw up and then, oh, hope no one saw that shit? We all kind of know that deal, right? Okay. Okay, so there's doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. So what's that tell you about the authors?
They tried it.
They're a lot like us. So they tried it first. And then in actual practice, they found it was not sufficient. Any of you had a similar experience?
Absolutely.
See, there are no secrets in the realm of the Spirit. That's one of the things we've done terribly in the fellowship. So it's all about that dirty little secret. No, it's not. There are no secrets in the realm of the Spirit. It's all about knowing that's all a lie.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
That's what we're trying to help you see. Okay? All right, so then it goes on to tell us that many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We'll be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. Nonetheless, we're always going to show you good reasons. Then you can still take it or leave it alone. Does that make sense? Okay, the best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. How many of you came here to overcome addiction? How many here just rested? Well, I know we say we laugh, but I came a few times just resting. Fade a little heat. Yeah? How many of you came here just resting and didn't know you were just resting until you found yourself spun like a monkey out there going, got a dollar? Me too. Okay. The best reason first, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. So the first thing you got, do you really want to stop? If you don't really want to stop, it doesn't matter what anyone else's opinion of how difficult it is to watch you, you're powerless. The only one that matters lives within you and you are unaware. So if we don't wake up the one within you, you don't stand a chance. So we're going to talk to that new man within you that they talk to us about in here. And I'm talking, fellowship of man type way for all my people who want me not to be sexist. Okay, so time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Any of you ever thought about that?
Yeah.
How many of you newcomers with something less than 40 years have done it? How many times today?
Yeah.
So hence a manner of living. The ego remanifests and we try and cover it up, don't we?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so trying to avoid this humbling experience, they've turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. Does that ever happen to you? Yes. Did anyone ever point out to you there is no rest of the program? That's another thing we don't do very well. It's a manner of living. See, we don't work the steps. I haven't completed my 9th step. I may well be in the 1st step experience when I'm witnessing that to you.
Right.
You ever tried to get someone to get it who wouldn't get it, and you're like trying to persuade them?
Right.
Forgot your role? You're not the persuader?
Right.
Well, you've got to do this step. Well, you're going to have to fully concede to your innermost self that you have got no power over that other drunk.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's why working with others helps us, because they teach us more of powerlessness, and they mirror for us.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we think the reason is they never completed their house cleaning. How many of you think that means that they learned how to do the perfect 4th step? Sometimes I've heard that almost taught. My house cleaning is not completed until I've taken that experience that I thought was a wasted life out and used it to help another. I've learned to retell the story as a victor, not a victim.
Right.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
So the house cleaning isn't completed until I take all my mistakes, the ones in the past and the ones of a minute ago, and put them to use. Therefore, they were not mistakes, they were purposeful, they were fitness. But I've got to finish the exercise. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so they took inventory all right, but they hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. The word thought's in italics. They didn't do that lightly in this book. Why would they do that when they had to reset the typeset just to put it in italics? They wanted us to focus on that. So why would they emphasize the word thought? Main problem centers in the mind. Human beings cannot think or act their way into a state of being. That would be a human doing. All we can do is become aware of a state of being we are in. And in fact, the minute you become aware of the state of being you're in, you're out.
Right.
And if you think about it, you'll know, right? Have you ever done something completely selfless and thought, my, that was selfless? I hope someone got the Instagram out. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. They put the word all in italics. Why do you think they did that?
It's important.
How many of you thought your life ended when addiction ended?
Yep.
Or at least it felt that way. You kind of held it to yourself. My life started when I got freed from the bonds of addiction. That's when new life came in. And then I learned to tell the story of this power that restores, and in that, this life unfolded, a new creation in and through me. Any of you having a similar experience? Okay. So our whole life story hasn't been told because we're here breathing. Yes? Okay. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. You relate to him? You can catch alcoholism in here. I'm sorry. He's very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. Now they're talking to you of the sensory experience of the war within. You hear religious people talk of spiritual warfare. You ever had a war between your head and your heart?
Yep.
I want that, but I don't deserve it.
Yep.
I want that, but they don't deserve it.
Yep.
Whatever it is. See what they're talking about? So now we can understand where we have been at war, right? With our thoughts. Yes? Okay. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Where's my drinkers? You guys have any sprees that you remember? Yeah. I won't even ask the meth addicts. They had sprees that people don't even remember. There weren't even people there, probably. 7 days in the closet. Anybody write that book? Yeah, no shit. Okay, coming to his senses, he's revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. See how they're talking to you about a full body experience? Nothing but a full body experience is going to overcome that. Okay. All right, so as fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they'll never see the light of day. Do you relate to that?
Yeah.
Pushing all those memories of all that tragedy and mess and everything far inside. Where's the power found?
Deep down inside.
Oh, so we relate to the plan, but it's not a very good plan, is it?
Yeah.
He's under constant fear and tension. What did the doctor observe about alcoholics? Resentful, angry, restless, unless irritable, right? Discontented. Okay. That makes for more drinking. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We've spent thousands of dollars for examinations. Anyone else besides me spent a few bucks or spent the insurance company's money on examinations? And all my opiate addicts, believe me, someone thought you should have seen a shrink if you did. All those times you were there and had to have just a little whatever at the hospital. Yeah. That's how we started, isn't it? Where's my opiate friends? Starting Mom and Dad's medicine cabinet. Then we go to the hospitals, and then it's just a matter of simple economics. We got to go to the dope house. $50 a gram, $80 a tab. Hell, I'm a fucking genius, right? No? I'm the only one, huh? Okay, so we know of a few instances where we've given these doctors a fair break. Did you tell these physicians the whole truth about you? No. Did you follow their advice? No. Only the shit that said take this one, right? We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Why do we point that out to you? Because this isn't a book of perfection, it's a book of progress. We make progress by admitting our mistakes. So they wrote down the mistakes they made, both in the past and as they went along, so that we could relate to the mistake, and every suggestion they give us is based on a mistake they made. So when you find yourself having made this mistake, don't hang your head. Realize that rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed your path. Right. Because now you're with them.
Right.
Some of you felt that. Mm-hmm. There you go. Okay. So then it goes on to tell, small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance for recovery. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Do you expect to live long or happily in the world?
Yeah.
I do now.
How many of you don't expect to live long, but you'd be happy with a little happy? Some of us who were real tore up, that's all. I don't give a shit if it's 6 days, if it's happy. Okay. So rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Isn't that true?
Yep.
That's why we want to be careful about telling people what they're going to do. The Spirit will direct them to someone who can help mirror them. That's right. The authors tell us very clearly, you cannot transmit what you do not have.
Right.
Obviously. We are light within. When we come in here and turn on the lights, did anyone have to announce to you that the lights came on for any of you to become aware?
Nope.
No, there was no announcement. Lights coming! They just filled the fucking room and everyone knew the lights came on. Similarly, there won't be a need for an announcement from you of your enlightenment. It will be evident everywhere you go. And you'll start seeing evidence of it because people come to life. The first time you'll see it, it'll be the ones that annoy you. They'll come up to you out of a crowd and ask you for a handout. They're not coming to you, they're coming to him. Act accordingly. That make sense? Okay. All right. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must and of course will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. So if you have a religious practice that requires confession, by all means, go to confession. But if they don't understand what you got going on, you may need to continue to do your AA practice separately. Or find someone that can do your religious practice and your AA practice with you. Either way.
Right.
Okay, though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. How many of you have been blessed with a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps and is working with others? Have you ever had someone who wanted to tell some part of their story to a priest or a shrink or a...
Yep.
It definitely happens when we have criminal charges pending. And the fact of the matter is, I already know who they are by the signature of the Spirit by the time I'm having this conversation. So it really doesn't matter to me what the story is. I'm just going to help them see it. I'm not going to help them tell it. Does that make sense? So whoever they want to go tell that part of their story to, does it make sense? Encourage them to do so. Okay, so we often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. What is our problem?
The mind.
Centers in the mind. It's driven by fear, these various manifestations of self. Kind of hard to put our finger on, isn't it? How many of you had a problem today? How many of you survived it? Yeah. Were there any of you that thought pretty sure you wouldn't survive it at the time? Yeah, the problem is usually not the problem, it's the fact that we think it's a problem.
No, it was a problem.
Sometimes. Sometimes. Is it still a problem?
Yeah.
Then you brought it here. Right? So the freedom is, it was a problem back there unless you brought it here. So all we're trying to tell you is why drag it along? Because it's just baggage. We've got a process to help us be freed of that. Okay? So of course we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah.
Were you surprised that you met them in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous? We laugh about that, but how many of you have had someone close to you in the disease and sick?
Yes.
Were you mad at them?
Yeah.
Perhaps you don't understand alcoholism.
Right.
Powerless is not a theory. Powerlessness is an experience. Okay. So if we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouth understanding friend. So guys, as you're growing in this, as you're helping people, that's what we're trying to grow into, is a closed-mouth understanding friend. All we are is to mirror for them the testimony they're giving as unaffected. Grace. Grace manifested. Does that make sense? How many of you have to admit that you're sometimes not too understanding or closed-mouthed? How many of you were worse when you first got here? Have you been growing in closed-mouthedness and understanding? Doesn't the third step promise that we're going to grow in understanding? It's always in italics or underlined, and it's always understood, past tense. The God I understand today is not the God I understood then, because my experience has improved. Now, in fact, I'm convinced it's not even my understanding I received. I received another perspective. I received his understanding. Does that make sense? Okay. So perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose to our wives or parents with anything to our wives or parents which will hurt them or make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. So understand what? Unaffected by what?
Understand what we're doing.
Understand that I'm in my search for the truth. And I am unaffected by that truth. Right? I'm helping you because I understand you're in a search for your truth, the truth about you. And I am unaffected by that truth about you. In fact, I fully support you learning the truth about you. Not the lie you tell yourself or what the world perceives. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So the rule is that we must be hard on ourselves but always considerate of others. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be that one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. Do you think that's true in Phoenix, Arizona today?
Yep. Yep.
It's hard to imagine, but it does happen. Have any of you have ever found yourself in county lockup?
Yep.
Not everybody has, but if you're there, it's pretty hard to secure something. Putting something on paper might be a problem.
Yep.
For a lot of various reasons. How many of you have been a prisoner in your mind and such you didn't even want it, couldn't even look in?
Right.
You wanted to just give me any other solution than looking in.
Yeah.
Anyone know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
You get here and someone says the answer's for you or in you. Like, fuck that. Right? I ain't going there. But it's only there that the power may be found. That's what they're telling us is the story. Okay, so, all right, so if that is so, this step may be postponed only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through it at the first opportunity. This is the place when you're watching that disturbing death and addiction, and you know what it is. Understand that all of us are witnessing to you that we once were in that disturbing death, and it prepared me to stand before you and tell you there is a liberator. Does that make sense? When we admit to you our addiction, when I say I am an addict, I don't talk to you of a present condition. I talk to you of a dead man regenerated. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so it's important that he be able to keep a confidence. Oh, yeah, we say this because we're very anxious that we talk to the right person. It's important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we're driving at, and that he will not try and change our plan. So that's what we're trying to grow into as we're helping people. So the 12th step makes no differentiation between the person taking the step for the first time and the person meeting the recovered alcoholic, because everyone is guaranteed a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps.
Right.
So I don't seek your spiritual experience, it's mine I seek. But not selfishly, absent self is the goal, although it's nothing I can do, right? Well, you know how you find, I had a guy ask me, if I know helping other people is going to help me, how's that selfish? You'll be doing it with no thought or effort on your part. And then you'll realize the miracle.
Right.
You'll have things coming out of you that in fact you didn't know were in you.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so when we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. Some of you felt that for a long time. Who was feeling that all the time?
Yeah.
There was a lot of presence in here for a long time. Those of you that felt it, that's the power we call God. It isn't these words and it isn't the person speaking it. Okay? Okay, so we have a written inventory and we're prepared for a long talk. How many of you had a long talk?
Yeah.
We explained to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it. Now clearly I couldn't do that before someone had showed me, could I? So my job is to show you what I have to do and why I had to do it and what I experienced as a result. So the whole book's written in past tense. So I'm not going to quote the big book at them. I'm going to tell them in my own experience what it looked like and what I experienced as a result. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then they can decide how much further in this journey they want to go. Once they've made a decision, then they might as well keep going because the ease and comfort improves. Okay? Okay, so you should realize that we're engaged upon a life and death errand. For whom? For all of us, right?
Yeah.
We're linked. Okay? So most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They'll be honored by our confidence. How many of you are afraid to ask someone to help you? They'll be honored by your confidence. So if there's somebody that you're moved to ask them. Please. You know, selfishness is the problem. It isn't some evil outward force. It's an idea of self-identity in the flesh. You'll always help others by sharing with them and help letting them carry your burden with you. You'll find out you're neither one of you carrying a burden soon. Okay, so we pocket our pride and go to it. Why did they use that metaphor? How many of you had that one little thing that was going to the grave? I'll go through this process, but I am not telling this to anybody. And now you're sitting down with the guy and my life depends on it and I know it, but I really want them to like me. And I'm afraid that, like everyone else, when I tell them that about me, they won't like me. How many of you had that experience? What happened? Any of you try and hold it back?
Yeah.
Did anyone like me get told, okay, so what are you holding back? I'm like, how the fuck did you know? Then I spilled it, and I got a flow of the Spirit. When I did, he did. I think he got it before I did, because I became aware of the flow in me when I saw the light in him. Anyway, why do we help people? Because we always get more power than we need when we offer it to another. Why do I want to improve it? Because it's power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction from within.
Right.
So the whole decision is based on self, because I know I'm inherently selfish. But I'm going to experience selflessness, which is freedom from the bondage of self, the more I employ the Spirit and bear witness to the power. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Wow, that sounds like a lot of shit, don't it? How many of you found out it was? It's like, whew. Once we have taken this step withholding nothing, we are delighted. Did you notice a promise and condition contained in that sentence?
Yep.
What was the promise?
We'll be delighted.
We are delighted. Doesn't say we might be. Some of us were. What was the condition?
With thorough.
Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing.
Right.
How did that guy know I was holding something back? He was waiting for his hit, and he knew. Anyone ever give you something that wasn't the real shit? You're hitting on and go, what's this? Where's the real stuff? We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. Now that was profound for atheists and agnostics. It may not be for a believer. But how many of you, I've had believers that were pretty amazed by the experience that came over them once they were introduced to the relationship. Okay, but does that sound conceptual to you?
No.
To feel the nearness? Where am I going to feel it?
Deep down
In and through and all around. At times we share it in here, right? Many of us have shared it in here tonight. Okay, so we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. See how they separated the idea of, I believe this. So that's why we tell you, God doesn't care what you believe about Him. He believes in you. And if you'll just humble yourself just enough to allow the experience in, you'll find out there is a great reality within you, and it will make purposeful that which you thought was not purposeful.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Sound like a good trade-off?
Yeah.
All right. So the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. How many of you had that happen?
Yep.
Profound spiritual experience. Huh, that's enough. I'm just going to make meetings and join committees. Anybody? Any of you get miserable or drunk or both?
Miserable.
The goal of this is never abstinence, guys. We don't want to be just abstinent. I don't want to be drunk, and I don't want to be miserable, and I don't want to be both. What I want to be is inebriated in the Spirit as much as I can be. Because that's how I've lived my life up to now. It's the only way I'm comfortable. Okay, so we feel we're on the broad highway. Wait. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel that we're on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. What does that metaphor mean? How many of you you've never thought about it? He uses words to try and get us to think. And what he's talking about, how many of you realized you weren't alone maybe for the first time when you told your story and didn't feel judged? That there really was something or someone who understood you. Knew everything about you and yet still cared about you. Didn't it inspire you to go on? Some of you are feeling it now as I'm talking to you. Okay. Okay, so walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe is, I got a broad highway now. The way has been cleared. I'm not walking a tightrope anymore. It's okay to be me. And it's okay to be you. Does that make sense? Okay. So then it says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. Sounds pretty specific, doesn't it? So when we finish going through this process, we're going to go home. We're going to get quiet. We've already learned a little bit about meditation, right? We're going to make sure we've told all we had to tell. Does that make sense? Okay, and then it says carefully reviewing what we've done. What have we done? So far, I've done nothing but make a decision and then write down an inventory of my life. Right? Who I had resentments toward, people I've harmed, all my relationships, sex and otherwise, and then maybe a little list of fears that don't have any resentment in connection with them. Fears that have held me back. Doubts about who I am or who I could be. Yes? Any of you ever had any of those things? Okay. So then it talks to us about we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. For many of us that come here without a good belief system, and I say good, one that serves, one that we can serve in, one that isn't a suffering, we know this power better because we know this power not to be a concept or a philosophy or something else someone has told us, but it's an experience emanating in and through me. Does that make sense? So it's the first honest prayer many of us ever say. Right? I know God to be an experience. None of us can fully define or comprehend that power which is God, but we can experience it. Once, by this point, I've had a powerful flow of the Spirit, or if I haven't, we're going to find out before we're done here tonight why that might not have happened and how it's going to come fairly shortly. Okay? Okay, so taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we've omitted anything, for we're building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is the work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skipped on the cement put in the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? So let's go back to 58, 59. 59. And let's do that real quick. We've admitted we were powerless over alcohol, dash. So we're going to stop right there. When do they mean? Powerless when?
Before and during and after.
Always.
How many of you got here and just weren't picking up no matter what? And then one day thought perhaps I overreacted. So I was powerless when I was sitting in these rooms unaware, and pretty soon I got confused by this illusion of control, and I didn't realize I was experiencing grace, and once control had me again, I was off on my control addiction and I had to medicate it. The idea that he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. I'm sober now. The idea that I will control and enjoy my thinking is the great obsession of every abnormal thinker. Why not a manner of living that helps me discipline that thinker, which always takes me back to the spiritual experience I know, out there instead of in here. Make sense? Okay. All right, so that our lives have become unmanageable. When do they talk to us about unmanageability? Go back to page 52. How many of you thought your life was unmanageable because of your addiction? It does complicate things. But what we discover here is that my addiction was a symptom of this unmanageability, and the chemicals I used to control my emotional nature were my solution until they became problematic.
Right.
Okay, so let's see if you find the same thing. Go to 52, second paragraph. Why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relationships. Does that ever happen to you? How many of you locked yourself up because you figured out people were the problem? Put boundaries up. All by yourself. Still had trouble with personal relationships. We had an example of that tonight, right? And not poking fun, but if I'm still thinking about a problem that happened earlier today, my thoughts are the problem, not the event. Does it make sense? Yeah, it's gone. Okay. All right, so then it says we couldn't control our emotional natures. You ever had that happen? Attitude of gratitude, bucket of fuck it. It's like right now. You're sitting there all chill, and then some bitch walks in. No? It's never happened? We were never designed to control our emotional nature. You're designed to experience your emotional nature and improve consciousness so that you can use that emotional nature to help others. So you can witness passionately without being overcome by that emotion. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So then it said we were prey to misery and depression. How many of you discovered that after you sobered up? Okay. Couldn't make a living, had a feeling of uselessness, full of fear, we were unhappy, couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Any of you relate to that? That's the unmanageability I'm admitted to in 1, on faith. By 2, they've showed me that. And now I know I need because I know that underlying my addiction was this problem. And below that is some kind of a spiritual malady manifesting all these various ways, the war between the head and the heart. Yes?
Yep.
No?
Yeah.
Sort of? Might be so? Fuck it, the book sells, try it. Alright, so then we got a second step. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Greater than ourselves. Where do we find this power?
Deep down inside.
Notice how the step does not say God.
Right.
They know we have prejudice about that, so they don't introduce us to God until they've introduced us to the experience, any more than they introduce us to electricity until they introduce us to the experience. They talk about it in this book. It says, we have theories about electricity, but none of us believe them without a murmur of doubt. Why? Because we've experienced, we've shocked ourselves, right? The lights have come on, whatever, right? So the same thing happens. They're always expected us to come with a demonstration first and not prejudice you with words. So do you know there's a power in you yet that we're going to try and do an awaken?
Yep.
And if you do, then we moved into a third step prayer to ask that power to empower me to go inward fearlessly, which I can't do. I need more power than me. Does that make sense? Okay, so then that's the decision, made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Notice in italics, God I understood then is not the God I understand now. Isn't that so for you, no matter how long you've been here?
Yes.
Okay? So then we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Why? Because that's how we discover those calamities, pomps, and worships that are obscuring our consciousness of this power. So all I'm doing is, where's my meth addicts? All we're trying to do is clean the pipe out. Right? We get a full blast. Nothing we're unfamiliar with. Okay, and then admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our defects, which we've just now done. And then we're ready to embark, aren't we, on the rest, right? I made a decision based on faith. Okay? And I moved into this thing knowing that I was going to get armed with the facts about me, right? Didn't the fourth step arm you with the facts about you? Yeah. Okay, so now I'm on page 76. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. Answer to our satisfaction what?
That we have done a thorough job with 1 through 5.
Am I convinced? Have I tried to make mortar without sand, right? Whatever metaphor. The first requirement of the third step is that you be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So I've got to quit believing that you're causing how I think and feel. I need power to take 100% responsibility for my emotional nature. You're not causing it, I'm experiencing it. I may experience you and it's difficult, but that's not you causing it, it's the experience I'm having. That's going to require a power greater than me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then we're ready. So then it goes on to tell us if we have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. So have you ever been told when you came back, well, you know, you're just not willing? Hopefully you haven't said that to anyone else. Because what they know is the power we seek manifests as willingness. If they're not willing, it's not because of anything they're doing, they're powerless. And if I'm not willing to show patience, tolerance, kindness, and goodwill towards all men, I'm powerless. But there is a power that can restore. There's one. What do we call it here?
God.
The tangible power we call God. Not a theology. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So are we now ready to let God remove all these things from us which we have admitted are objectionable?
Yes.
There's no secrets in the realm of the Spirit. Whatever you've done, God knows. Whatever you've said, God knows. We told you last week, talk to God like you talk. God already knows how you talk. When I got here, I didn't know how to talk in King James language. Anyone else? Still don't use it well. Anyone else here fluent in King James language? Except for Sean, I always forget. Okay. Can you now take them all, every one? That's a big bite, isn't it?
Yes.
Now I can really sense, if I'm ready for this decision, because the decision is the rest of the steps, based on the truth, my eyes have been opened now.
Yeah.
This isn't a leap of faith. I know how I've harmed them. I know how my resentments have harmed me and others. I know the things I've stolen. I've not only stolen physical things, I've stolen spiritual things. I stole from my family and my loved ones. And it wasn't the material things I stole. I stole their trust, their hope, their faith. I'm going to really need power to replace those things. The benefit of it is in the replacement of them, as I ask for the power to give it to them, it's going to flow through me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you really know what I'm saying, you'll be doing what you see me doing. Because this is, any of you ever hook people up for dope? You know, like, just you didn't have enough money because you used too much, but you knew where the dope house was. So when you could see they were looking for it, you say, hey, and take them down to the house because you knew you could hook them up and get a taste. I'm the only motherfucker that did that. Okay. That's what 12th step is. I know where the power is. I'm going to hook you up. Come on. This isn't foreign, people. We make it foreign. Okay? Okay, can you now take them all, every one? Why is that so important? What's the first step in recovery? We learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self. So I'm always powerless on my own. So now, if he's going to take them all, every one, I'm going to need power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction, or it ain't happening.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can I lie about it?
No.
No, you can if you want, but who am I lying to? Okay. Any of you ever lied to you?
Oh, yeah.
Any of you ever sat behind the dumpster going, rarely have we seen a person? I could memorize the preamble, just couldn't get out of the bushes. Somehow that was good enough. Anyone else? Only suckers pay rent? That ever happened? Can you now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something that we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. Why is it so important to get honest with ourselves at this moment? Because willingness is divine power.
Right.
And it will have an expression through you. How many of you had a willingness, but it wasn't sufficient to make you move? Just enough to make you uncomfortable. Oh, are you serious? I really have to do it? Oh. Anyway, have you ever been in that place? Don't sit on the fence in recovery.
Yeah.
Once you start getting pushed, jump.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And even if you're wrong about the jump, we got another step. You admit we're wrong promptly, go the other fucking way. Experiencing new freedom, new happiness now? Okay, so when ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I'm now willing that you would have all of me, good and bad.
Yeah.
I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We've then completed step 7. There's only one place in this book they talk about completions, and it's the only place they say an amen.
Right.
So the third step prayer was a prayer of faith, but it was half of the prayer of the search for God within. And now that my eyes have been opened, any of you students of another book? There's one fellow who had never met one particular power in person, but he did get experience going blind on the road to Damascus. And then his eyes were open, and he had to go carry the message to souls like us. Those who did not believe, or didn't think God could be proven to exist, or thought they had to believe in a certain kind of way. So our eyes are now open, huh? Are we ready? I'm not trying to preach at you, but half of us are atheist or agnostic, the other half are believers. We're going to talk to everyone in the room. The Spirit's talking to whoever's hearing.
Right.
Okay? All right, so that's it. Believe it or not, that's it.